Likewise.
Sheila, it's so lovely to talk to you today for She Can. Tell us a little about yourself and what you do.
Well, thank you for including me today, Steffi. I very much support this project and I'm looking forward to its coming to fruition. In short, I am a writer, a mother, a wife, a sister, and a daughter. And I think, I, like many women out there, have many, many roles. And I always find that I get teary when I talk about them because we shoulder a lot as women and as we go through life. And I feel very lucky to have all those roles. But sometimes they can be exhausting as we journey through life. So I should also say, I'm also a serial bookworm and I love photography as well. I don't know much about photography, but I am someone who has spent a lifetime probably observing more than always participating in a conversation because I'm a little shy right upon meeting me, and I always was as a child. I've probably come out of my shell over the years, but I am currently writing a book of essays about the highs and lows of being married to a diplomat and representing a country, namely Italy, which is not my own, but one which I love. But it's one that has kindly adopted me from my homeland of America. So that's what's going on right now in my life. And I guess I'll just give you a little bit of background in terms, I know once, you had asked me, how did you get there?
Yeah,
And
how did you get there, Sheila, to be a writer? I mean, obviously you met Lorenzo and you became his wife. What does it mean to be a wife of a diplomat?
Well, how did I get here? I just wanted to answer that first and foremost. And I think I really got here because I followed my heart. And that may sound really corny, but it was hard because in following my heart, I left my country. I left my country before I had a serious job, before I had a serious relationship, to be honest. I mean, we were we were dating, but it was still something, we were young. I mean, so basically my story is that I moved to Rome when I was 25 years old. I'd been working in the art world in New York and I wasn't very happy with life there and wanted to move on, but didn't have the courage to do it by myself. I had a unique opportunity when I was 25. I was working at Sotheby's auction house in New York at the time. And my father was director of a museum in New York called the Morgan Library. And he received an opportunity to spend 3 months anywhere in the world. And he and my mother decided to spend these 3 months in Rome. And they asked me if I wanted to join them. And it just felt like a rhetorical question that I had to go. But yet, I was ensconced in a job and a career in New York. I had just bought a small apartment, which really felt like a sense of independence, a big move. And so I suddenly said, you know what, I may have done that, but I'm going. And I had a wonderful boss at Sotheby's. And he said, are you kidding? You'd be an idiot not to go. So off I went to Rome for 3 months, and it was a beautiful opportunity to sort of regress and live with my parents after I had graduated from college, been out of college for 3 years. And so in essence, we took Italian language classes every single day together at this school. And we just had a wonderful time. And we met some wonderful people during that time. And so after 3 months, I decided I really wanted to stay. So my parents realized that they'd sort of created a monster in that they brought me over to Italy. And then they went back to New York to continue where my father then continued his job as a museum director. And I stayed on in Rome, and I started working at the American Academy in Rome. I worked there for a year. And during that time, I decided I really wanted to go into journalism. And somewhere along those lines, I met Lorenzo, my now husband. We met through mutual friends ice skating at the Piazza del Popolo. Now, because I grew up in upstate New York in the Hudson Valley, I knew how to ice skate. So I thought that's pretty cool, a Roman who knows how to ice skate. Well, he did not know how to ice skate, but he was completely charming on ice. And he was one of the few people there who really spoke English well, so we could communicate. I, of course, thought my Italian was fabulous, and it was awful. So thank God his English was good, so that we could communicate and get along. In any event, we started dating, and I started working at the American Academy in Rome. He was finishing up his law degree, and I then went back to New York to go to Columbia University to get a master's in journalism. He finished law school and then decided to get into the Italian Foreign Service, which he did. And then we took off. Well, we eventually got married. And this was after having dated for 6 or 7 years. It was quite a long courtship. My father would show up at Piazza Navona and tap his foot and say, "I'm ready to talk to Lorenzo if he wants to talk to me about something." So eventually he did. And it was well worth the wait. And we got married in Rome. And then 2 years later had our first child named Luca. And so he was born in Rome. And then we moved to Brussels for 4 years. Our daughter Sophia was born there. Then we moved to Tel Aviv for 4 years. Then we moved back to San Francisco for 2.5 years, or excuse me, we moved back to Rome for 2.5 years. And then we were posted eventually in San Francisco for what turned out to be 5 years. So to answer your question, what does it mean to be the wife of? It is both a privilege and a challenge at times, I will say. I'll speak about my most recent experience, which was this wonderful opportunity to be posted in my own country while representing another one. And I will say it was just so much fun because I got to know a side of the United States that I didn't know at all, because I grew up on the East Coast and we were obviously living on the West Coast. And those are two very different worlds. Any American will tell you that. And so that was a really unique opportunity. And then the other thing that was so much fun was that I got to know my own country through the eyes of Italians. So I would have never seen, I'd say 75 to 80% of that which I saw if it hadn't been thanks to this job of being wife of. Examples are getting to see the Apple campus through the eyes of an Italian architect who worked with Norman Foster on building that remarkable building. And there were just many other opportunities which were really fun. And so I was very proud to be there, both as an American and as an Italian. I think when I first showed up in America, I was very much ensconced in the idea of what it means to be the wife of a European diplomat in Europe. Again, I'd only done that for 4 years in Brussels and then 4 years in the Middle East, in Tel Aviv. And I must say the experience between the Middle East and Europe was quite a difference. And living in Tel Aviv helped me understand that I didn't necessarily have to adhere to these social constructs of what I thought it meant to be the wife of, namely always standing next to your spouse and not necessarily participating in conversations. And I mean, in the Middle East, there's this great encouragement to express your opinions. And people would often say, okay, well, it's nice to meet your husband, but who are you? And I thought, well, isn't that fun? All right, I'll tell you who I am. And so it gave me a great deal of encouragement. And perhaps in Europe, there's more of a traditional feel as to what the wife of a diplomat is expected to do, or where he or as a spouse of a diplomat is expected to be seen. And it was really not until we got to San Francisco that I felt that I just had to relax a little bit. I had to just simmer down and realize that this was an amazing opportunity. And rather than get caught up in the, am I really just standing by my man. I mean, yes, I may be standing next to the man I love, but let's do some fun things together. So we really work together as a team. And one of the things I'm most proud of in terms of having been the wife of the Italian Consul General to San Francisco is at the Italian consulate, there is a beautiful back garden. And when we showed up, it was a jungle and it just hadn't been taken care of. And it had such great opportunity to be used as an additional salotto or just a space where we could have receptions or readings or exhibitions or openings. So in this past year during COVID, we actually took advantage of the fact that things were quieter, and we put in and we imported an Italian a pizza oven from Naples, and it was airlifted over the consulate because it wouldn't fit through the front door when it arrived. Then we had a very kind donor and sponsor who gave us an outdoor kitchen to go next to the pizza oven. And then on top of that, we turned all of the vegetation into an organic edible garden. And Alice Waters, who's known as sort of the founder of great Californian cuisine, came and waved her wand and, you know, sort of sanctified it as an edible organic garden. So every single plant and spice and herb that grows there, from artichokes to, you know, rosemary to basil to lemon trees to apple trees, they all have a connection between Italy and California. So we set up this space together, and that was really fun. And then we turned it into an outdoor exhibition space. So we had this beautiful exhibition of bronze sheep, as in Baba lambs and sheep from Tuscany, because we have a Californian friend who splits her time between San Francisco and Lucca, and she creates these beautiful bronze sheep, which she takes inspiration from her property in Tuscany. And so we brought the sheep into the consulate, and they've been grazing in the grass there that we planted. And that was really a beautiful, just, you know, accumulation of all sorts of things that we did together as a team. So in that particular project, I was able to pursue my my love for art and outdoor spaces in Italy, and the networking we did to make that garden a living garden is kind of fun. So
Amazing, Sheila. And tell me, you have been writing throughout all those years of being seconded to different countries, and you've been working as a journalist, and now you're writing your book. What is it that motivates you to get those stories out to people?
What motivates me most, people who are enthusiastic, passionate, warm, open-minded, and funny. And I've always loved taking photographs of people, and I love writing portraits of people. And one of the privileges of being in this business is the variety of different sorts of people that we meet. And I have loved that. I mean, the storytelling that can come out of you know, a dinner party or a reception or a field trip to a vineyard one afternoon. Everything from the story of the farmer who's collecting the olives to the, you know, the mechanic who is tuning up a Ferrari. I mean, there can be some really fun stories that I feel need to be shared. So my memory is lapsing as I get older, and I find that there are so many wonderful things that need to be remembered and recalled, and so I just try to jot them down. But it is time. It's time consuming, and it's hard to find the time. But my kids often say to me, you're cranky. We can tell you haven't written for a while. So it's something that clearly keeps me sane, and I need to stick to it. And when we go through these transitional moments, which we are in right now, as you can see from our empty bookcases, our shipment is somewhere in the Panama Canal, which makes me a little nervous because I'm not so sure it will arrive, but it will get there, and we'll deal with it. So in these transitional moments, it's hard to find that time. But I'm basically motivated by the variety of different people that we meet, and it is such a privilege to be able to talk to so many different sorts of people. And I must say, the Italians that I've met overseas are so impressive. They're so much fun. And I don't get to meet as many Italians when I'm living in Rome, because I get absorbed in my sort of school life. And I should explain that when we get back to Rome, I don't have the element of entertaining as part of the job, because we're sort of back on the home base. And so my husband kicks into doing a job locally. And so it's a wonderful time when I can take the time to reflect and write, because I'm not having to do as much of the networking and the nightlife, which can get a little draining, especially when you're trying to juggle some other things as a mother and wife and daughter and daughter-in-law.
Oh, thank you for sharing that, Sheila. It's so interesting, and I can imagine what a colorful life that must be. Sheila, what do you think is your superpower? What makes you good? Being a writer, telling those stories, being by Lorenzo's side.
I am a listener and an observer, and I like to think I put people at ease because I share my vulnerabilities, which in turn often makes other people share theirs with me. And it's also been very humbling as an American to live overseas and to have to work and exist in another language. And that may sound like a very banal thing to say to a European, but Americans live in a huge country where they can travel what it would take to, from San Francisco to New York is like flying from New York to London. It's a 5-hour trip, and you still speak the same language at the end of that trip. So I have found that it's been very humbling for me to learn how to exist in another culture and to listen and to observe in another language. And in my 40s, I sort of stopped caring about what others thought about me. And I realized it just didn't really matter if I didn't speak Italian perfectly or even well. I mean, and it felt liberating. And I finally started telling my own story rather than thinking I had to share someone else's story. And so I think perhaps another superpower is just that I'm flexible and relatively organized. And I think you do need to have a combination of those two things, certainly in the field of the Foreign Service, because we live with a constant level of uncertainty. We're always waiting for something, whether we're waiting for a shipment of our whole life to arrive or the next job opportunity. I mean, there's never this feeling of, oh, why don't I really, sit back and relax? That'll come one day. I mean, I guess it's fair to say that it happens somewhere along the middle, but sometimes you don't know how long a stint is going to be. So just as you're getting settled in, then you receive a phone call and you have to move on. So
thank you for sharing that, Sheila. It's very interesting. What would your top tips be for other women?
I would say don't just step out of your comfort zone, but leap. And use the power of female friendship to help you feel comfortable when you might be feeling uncomfortable. Share your mistakes with others, and it will provoke others to share theirs with you and make you feel you're not alone. Don't be afraid to fail. A flop can eventually lead to a triumph. And one thing I've really learned overseas as an American post-university was it really doesn't matter where your degree comes from, whether it's Ivy League school or not. It's how you put what you've learned at the institution that has raised you. That's most important. And I'd say read books outside of your comfort zone and carry around a highlighter to remind yourself of those good passages that inspire you. Carry a notebook in your purse and write down your thoughts, because all women have great thoughts. And I will say that I have two favorite expressions. One is life is not a dress rehearsal. So you just have to show up and do your part. There may not be a second act. You've got to perform. And then the other expression that I think works quite well in all sorts of negotiations, whether they're at home or in the workforce, and that expression is simply, you're probably right, which is an interesting way to kind of turn a conversation sometimes, because it may lead the other person to think, oh, great, she's listening to me, but then opens up the space for you to express your own opinion. So I find that that can be a very diplomatic um, turning point in a conversation if you say, you're probably right, but let me tell you what I think.
I love, there are so many good juicy tips. Thank you for that. Sheila, what would what are your dreams for your future? Where would you ultimately like to end up?
Well, it's certainly, I really would like to publish my book of essays, and maybe even another one, just because I've been talking about it for so long. And I just want people to see that I really have been working. um, and I hope to have someone tell me that one day that my writing and my actions have inspired them to tell their own story. Because I think there are too many of us that stay quiet for whatever reason. And so I would love that. And then I really do hope to continue to watch my children grow into adults. That continues to be a very moving journey. And in terms of where I'll end up living, I really don't know. I mean, at this stage in my life, I would love to split my time between Italy and America, but who knows? Maybe one day we'll be posted in Tokyo, and that will suddenly change our life. So, I mean, that's a really wonderful part of this career, that you just never know. I mean, I cried when I found out we were moving to Tel Aviv, because all I really knew about Israel was all that I had read and seen on TV, which is often exploited news, etc. And I cried when we had to leave. I really didn't want to go. So the experience of living in Tel Aviv showed me that you can read as much as you want in a textbook or a novel or a memoir, but it's really not until you travel that you can really get a sense of what's going on in another land. And so that, to me, is the greatest privilege that I have in this field of being the wife of a diplomat. Yeah.
Oh, thank you. What a beautiful story. Thank you for sharing, Sheila. It's been lovely to chat to you.
Well, likewise, thank you. And best of luck with this project.
Thank you.